Hello, and welcome to this Game Dev Vlog, in which I'm going to talk about my next upcoming project, which I am basically starting now. So you'll be able to follow it through these vlogs from beginning and hopefully to the end. Um, One interesting thing I might tell you is that I've just decided, like last week, to continue developing for Windows. For quite a long time now, I've had my sights set on the Raspberry Pi, which is a computer that runs Linux, as my as the platform I would be developing for. But I changed my mind, although I won't go into detail in this video because I've tried, and those videos became very cluttered and unfocused. Instead, um, I just wanted to tell you this because even though I've worked in Windows quite a bit, I haven't really gotten to grips with the Windows. I believe it's called the Windows API. Just working with the operating system and cooperating with it and learning how to make it do things for you. Hence, the programs I produced, like the game you see around me here, um, they weren't very well adapted. I just learned the bare minimum of what I needed to know to put graphics on screen, in a window on screen, basically. And and I thought anything beyond that, making a program that's neat, um, user friendly, um, and has some functionality beyond the bare minimum. I wouldn't care about that because my sites were on a different operating system and a different platform. But now I am. So at the moment, I'm studying just basically very basic Windows um, interfacing with my applications. So you'll see some of that in the upcoming vlogs. Me being very proud of things that you really should know if you're developing anything for Windows. But bear with me. So my upcoming project is my next game, obviously, and it's going to be an action game, meaning it will run real time like none of my applications have before. So it will be have NPCs and or enemies in it that will be running around or doing something, and you'll have to react to them. I don't know what kind of game it is. I'll discuss that in a minute. Um, First of all, though, I am going to work out some graphics routines I've been working on since last week, or really for the last several weeks, but making some real progress um, lately. And then I'm going to apply those in an art program. I've written one art program already, and all the graphics you see in my games were made by me in my own application. But that was my first ever useful application, and it really shows that it was an amateur's first outing. Because even though it is functional, I could use it. It has very few uh, functions, and it was prone to crashing. uh, Also, I need and have learned many more new things about graphics that I want to apply in this next one. So that's the first order of business, building a tool for creating graphics. And so I don't think I'll get beyond that this week. I think that might take a few weeks, honestly, but I hope you'll follow along. As to the actual game I want to create, well, I have several ideas. It might be anything really, as long as it is, as I said, action-oriented, something that runs real time, where the program keeps running whether or not you issue any input. These other programs, like this game here and Untrodden Lands, they only reacted when you gave the program input. It would see what effect that would have, and it would respond accordingly, and then you'd make your next input. But even simple games such as Pong or Pac-Man or Tetris, all those they run continuously, and they run whether or not you make any input. And in all of those examples, you will lose if you don't make input by default. Um, so that's what I'm aiming at. Now, what kind of game? I have several, as I said, I have several ideas, but there's one in specific that I think might be very interesting. But imagine, for example, a racing game of some sort, um, some sort of shooting game. Of course, there are plenty. Either I'm not talking first person here. First outing will be simple. I think maybe some top-down or side-scrolling affair. Um, well, I was going to say flying game, but well, flying and racing games, when I imagine them as sort of third-person view, but maybe top-down is best for the first outing, uh, possibly. Depends on how far I get with my graphics routines. I am working on a routine that is similar to the so-called Mode 7 of the Super NES, and they used it to create Super Mario Kart. Basically, if this is a picture you have, you take this like so, you fold it, sort of fold it away from the viewer, basically like you're looking at a picture that's on a table. Um, it's one thing they did, and applied quite often in console games from the late 80s and early 90s, where racing games or others where you seem to be flying or walking or running into the picture. Basically, you had this picture that scrolled sort of actually top to down. You know, it was from up to down. It was scrolling, but then they skewed it into the picture so it looks that it was scrolling in this fashion. And for such games like Mario Kart and a few others, um, they actually managed to twist it as well. So basically, they had a picture of the racetrack, um, and then since they folded it and could twist it as you turned, it seemed as though you were riding on a three-dimensional track. It wasn't quite 3D, but it was an approximation of the experience. That's something I'm working on. Um, if I make it work, I might apply that in this first game. But I think maybe we should just go for a top-down thing to begin with, or a side scroller. I'm sort of partial to the top-down for one reason, because I have learned how to twist the graphic recently, and I'm very proud of that. And it would be cool to employ that technique. However, there's this game. Well, I guess I could make this top-down too. I'm going to move myself out of the way here a bit in order to make room for this. This is a character that I devised. Um, this is a picture actually which I ripped from my Instagram account from April last year, which was around the time that I drew this. And the idea to draw it was derived from a pun on my own family name. Um, so my name is Björkerot. That's my family name, which means birch root, as in a root of the tree, a kind of tree called the birch. Um, but you know, you can easily change it to birch rat. I thought, whether you find that funny or not doesn't matter. I thought, well, birch rat, that would be a cool name for a character, and I like rats actually. I find them fascinating and sometimes cute. So this is the birch rat. Um, why he's called the birch rat is I'm not sure. That's not very important, although I might come up with a reason if I make him into a game character. But ever since I drew this over there picture, I thought this one might be a cool character for if I ever make some sort of action game. And he could basically star in anything, I guess, a side-scrolling platformer, a top-down shooter, a racing game, a Mario Kart style racing game, I guess. But then we'd have to come up with some other animals to be his opponents slash mates. you know, anything. Although and I do like him, and I like the design, and would be fun to come up with something. Hey, a cycling racing game, why not? He's cycling because obviously, just like me, he lives in Copenhagen, and here people cycle. You know, it's one of the bicycle capitals of the world. World, one of the bicycle capitals of the world. Um, yeah, such games, right, are my goal. I hope to be producing this over the next few months, and I haven't mentioned this, but or I might have that I try, I have resolved to try and create only small programs while I'm still learning how to code before I take on any of my so-called end goals. See my coding intro video for my explanation of what those are. Um, I'll try not to make my projects too grand because with the game Untrodden Lands, I it became such a big project after a while that I had to cut it short. I had to cut it down to about a third of the of its largest vision, but it was still quite a big program, and it took a lot of time. And for much of that time, I didn't really learn much new stuff. I learned a little bit, but I don't. I mostly learned new stuff in the beginning of making it, and then it was more producing content. And that might be fine if it were a game that I went all in on. But the game had started like a very, very small idea. Actually, when you see this, you my first game dev documentary on the making of that game is probably out already, so you can look at that. And you'll know that it started like a very small idea, and then it grew because it was fun, but it really didn't have the foundation to be big. I sort of I guess if it were a house, it would be a very rickety sort of affair built, you know, with a foundation built of sticks, basically. So I think I should cut this video short now. I'm giving you the information. That is that I'm starting development now on the tool, the graphic making tool, the art making tool for my new project, which is going to be an action game of some sort, very likely involving this dear character, the birch rat. I hope this sounds enticing and interesting, and that you'll follow me. You can follow me here on YouTube, where I post videos and stream. I sometimes also stream on Twitch, and you can follow me on and support me on Patreon and my homepage. You'll find links to all my also Instagram. You'll find links to all my social media on my webpage, and thus I should probably leave a link to that in the description, and there will be. With that, I wish you a good time of day, and goodbye.